Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. It is the month of March, which means February has ended. It's come and gone. It's one of my favorite months because number one, Valentine's Day, love, which is why I wore this sweater with little hearts. It is also the month of my birthday. And a lot of great things happen in February, but two that I want to highlight for this video. Number one, Beyonce won Album of the Year for Cowboy Carter. So, period. Amazing album. Love the album. Number two, I read 6 great books in the month of February, and I wanted to talk about them before moving on to March because that's what I'm here for. I just want to talk about the books I read and how good they are. Let's get started. The first book I actually finished in February was When Haru Was Here by Dustin Thao. I have actually owned this book since like August of last year, and I actually got to meet Dustin when this book was released. He did a little tour, and for some of the stops of his book tour, he did bring along Jack Edwards, which is one of my favorite booktubers. So I got to meet him and Dustin, and because I got to meet him, I do have a signed copy. In the beginning of the book, we meet Eric and his sister, who's like going off to college, and we also meet his friend Daniel. Right off the bat, you can tell that like Eric has a crush on Daniel. They share a cute little kiss, and then we have a time jump, and they're in Japan for a school trip. While in Japan, Eric meets this guy named Haru, and he meets him because he is trying to get back to the hotel him and his classmates are staying at, and he gets lost, and Haru's like, don't worry, girl, I'll get you to where you need to go. But I do have to run some errands, so like, get on. I don't remember if he's on a bike or if they're walking, but he's like, come with me. They run errands. You can kind of tell that like Eric is like, oh my God, this guy's kind of cute and like he's really nice and whatever. But in my head, when I was reading that, I was like, girl, stay faithful to Daniel. You said you like Daniel. Eventually, Haru gets him to the train station that'll get him back to where he needs to go for the hotel. And he's like, hey, I want to see you again, Eric. Can I see you tomorrow? He's like, actually, dude, this is my last night here. I'm about to go back to the United States after tonight because I was here for a class trip. This is all happening as Eric is in the train and the doors start to close. And after the doors close, the train goes. And that's when Eric realizes he doesn't have Haru's phone number. He doesn't have his Instagram at. He doesn't have like how to look him up on Facebook. So he just never hears from this man ever again. And then the next time jump, we find out that Daniel died. The rest of the book is Eric trying to deal with the loss of Daniel. And throughout the book, he keeps seeing Haru in his imagination. I feel like the book is about grief, but also this balance between your imagination helping you cope or helping you escape. Throughout the book, there are things that Eric does where I'm like, oh, he's just trying to run away from the problem. And it kind of irritated me a little when I was reading it, but then I had to remember, like, this kid is 19. Like, a lot of things he's doing in this book, I would do too at that age. And even though Eric's actions irritated me throughout the book, I think I really enjoyed it because Dustin does a very good job at writing queer characters, especially younger queer damn tongue twister, especially younger queer characters and like things that queer people do. There are a few parties that like are mentioned in the book, and one party in particular that really caught my attention was a party in a flashback that Daniel and Eric go to together. One of the things that Dustin writes about the party is that in the corner there are people playing Mario Kart. And I don't know, as a gay man myself who has gone to a few gay parties, if someone has a Nintendo Switch and they're gay, they're going to have Mario Kart and they're going to play it at the party. So I just really enjoyed like reading this stuff and being like, no, yeah, that would happen. Like, even though Eric as a character irritated me sometimes and I had to keep reminding myself that he was 19, I really enjoyed the book. After I finished the book, I went on Goodreads because I'm nosy and I like to know what people think about books I'm reading. You've Reached Sam is Dustin's first book, and some people that had read that first apparently liked that better than this. And because I read those comments of people like either liking both or liking one better, I kind of want to read You've Reached Sam. I don't know too much about that book, but I did read in the comments on Goodreads that they have similar themes, and the people that did like You've Reached Sam better were like, that book does better in exploring those themes. So maybe I will read that later on this year and clock tea and see what I actually think about both of these. The next book I read in February was Can I speak today? The next book I read in February was Blackwood's Blue Sky by Eowyn Ivey. This was actually my pick for my book of the month subscription for February. I picked up 2 books because I had 2 credits saved up. So I picked up this and Famous Last Words by Jillian McAllister. I did not finish the other one, and I had made a little rule for myself that if I don't finish my books of the month that I buy for a month, for the next month, I won't get a book until I finish all of the books that I have for the previous month, which is kind of a great idea and a great rule to make for myself. But then I did something dumb. I got 2 books for that month, knowing that I don't read my books of the month I get them. So now I made it twice as challenging for myself. I don't know. Anyways, back to this book. I loved this book. This book is so well written, in my opinion. There is something that happened in this book that really irritated me, which I'll get to. This book takes place in rural Alaska, and it follows Birdie and Emmeline. Birdie is a single mom who works at a bar, and she lives in a little cottage with her daughter, Emmeline. Right off the bat, at the beginning of the book, we see Birdie make very questionable decisions as a mother. She's kind of like a free spirit. She wants more for her life. She's, trying her best, but the decisions she makes as a mother are very questionable. That's one of the things that I really enjoyed about this author. Even though you have characters who make very questionable decisions, there's no like perfect character. All of these characters have their little thing they have. You kind of get to understand where they're coming from. And even though it doesn't excuse their actions, you kind of understand where they're coming from a little bit more. And it makes you think. It makes you think. The author does such a great job describing just wilderness and trees and flowers and how Alaska looks. I've never been to Alaska. I don't feel like I'm an outdoorsy person, but reading this book, I was like, maybe I should go outside. Maybe I do want to go to a little forest and like forage for berries, because she just does such a good job describing the wilderness. I loved it. Anyways, Birdie's like trying her best, but life was tough for her. My favorite character in the book is Emmeline, the daughter, because she's just so funny. There are a few chapters that are in her perspective, and just the way it's narrated and like the way you learn about her thought process. Mwah, chef's kiss, one of my favorite characters in the book. We're then introduced to Arthur, who is kind of the town weirdo. Everyone knows that he's weird. Like, he has a little weirdness to him. The reader, however, like you as the reader do know that he is half human, half bear pretty much. It's kind of discussed how when he was little, he was found in like the mountains in Alaska, and he was covered in bear fur. Some townspeople have seen him like covered in blood, naked, but they don't know that he's a bear. And that's where the magical realism in this book comes in. Because Arthur is a bear, his parents were like, you need to live in the middle of buttfuck nowhere because we can't deal with all that. So during the winter, he hibernates and then he comes back. But people just think that like, oh, he goes out and then he comes back when it's like nicer weather. Everyone in the town is trying to warn Birdie like, hey, by the way, this Arthur man, he's kind of weird. Be careful. We know you got a daughter. Like, we love you and Emmeline. Be careful. And again, being this free-spirited character that Birdie is, she's like, y'all don't know shit. And I'm going to date Arthur. And as a matter of fact, to take it a step further, screw y'all. I'm going to go live with Arthur in the middle of nowhere in the mountains of Alaska. And to backtrack like 2 steps, we also meet Arthur's father, Warren, which it irritates me so much that he like knows this stuff about Arthur, but he doesn't tell Birdie. Like, I'm telling you, a lot of these characters, I'm like, some of the actions you're doing like are bad, but the author does a great job at like kind of explaining where they're coming from, just the way the story's crafted. It makes sense to you, like why, for example, Warren, Arthur's dad, is not telling Birdie like, hey, my son turns into a bear at night sometimes. He's half bear. Like, be careful. It is explained to us in the book that Warren just wants his son to be happy. Birdie and Arthur and Emmeline go off to the wilderness. The rest of the book follows them. There is a part in the book where there's a huge time jump, and it kind of irritated me because I wanted the story to continue as it went, and it makes sense. Like, I see what the reason for that time jump was. It just irritated me because I feel like the story could have just kept going. The time jump does correlate with Emmeline's character. The story doesn't suffer from that time jump. Like, we still get the information fed to us that we need, but I think maybe I just don't like time jumps. That's the thing. I'm like, I want to keep telling me the story as it is. However, other than that, the story is amazing. I love magical realism, so I've already felt like I was gonna like this book. On Goodreads, there was a lot of comments that said that this was like a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but I don't see it as a Beauty and the Beast retelling, because a big plot point in Beauty and the Beast is that the Beast like keeps Belle to himself and is like, you're sequestered. None of this book is Birdie like forced to stay with Arthur, even though he turns into a bear. She chose to go out with him, and like, she just doesn't know that he's a bear. And there are a lot of other themes that are explored that aren't very Beauty and the Beast, like motherhood and what it means to like have a daughter, what love feels like, what grief and loss feels like. I think that everyone should read this book. I don't know. That's just my 2 cents. The next book I read in February was Hereafter by Amy Lin. It's a memoir. I don't feel like I can say that I enjoyed reading this book because I feel like enjoy is not the right word. This book is about grief. Amy is married to her husband, Curtis, and out of nowhere, Curtis is running a marathon. He collapses and dies. This book is her life after that. Like, she is telling us everything that happened. I do want to show you guys that, like, this book is written in little numbered sections, and some are longer and some are shorter. There is one that is literally one sentence. It's number 21. She says, "When he dies, I fall out of time." It was just such a well-written memoir. It explores, obviously, grief, loss, but also how other people react to people's grief. Throughout her story, Amy talks about losing friends and like things they say, like, it's just too much. Like, I feel like at this point, pretty much you should have like moved on. Like, it's just so heavy, and like, I don't know if I can be around your grief. This is a book that my friend Jakey read, and he had recommended it to me. I don't remember exactly how the conversation went, but he asked me when he was recommending this book, he was like, "Do you ever think about like what would happen if your boyfriend died?" I'm like, actually, yes. I have yet to lose someone in my life that's like very close to me. There have been people in my extended family that passed away that maybe like I didn't know, or like people that maybe I went to church with when I was younger that I've lost, but maybe I wasn't like really close to them. So I've yet to lose someone in my life that's like close to me like this. And it's something that I fear. I'm like genuinely, is grief going to overtake me? And like, is it going to be too much? This book explores that. And she's like raw and honest about grief. She's not like, oh, like it'll get better. She's like, no, actually, it doesn't feel like it's going to get better. Like, she says that multiple times in the book, pretty much. Like, her message is like, yeah, it might not get better and it's going to feel like shit. Just things also that you don't think about when people pass away. One of the sections in the book is her talking about having to go back to the apartment that she and Curtis lived in and having to like go through his things and looking at his belongings and realizing like, oh, he's never going to need these anymore because he's gone. Like, no matter how much she wants to like nurture him and check on him, like picking up her phone and wanting to text him like, hey, did you eat lunch today? Like, none of that matters because he's not here anymore. And that's why I'm saying, like, I don't think I can say I enjoyed reading this book because it wasn't enjoyable. It was very raw, real emotions that I think we don't think about, but I think give us a better insight about what grief actually is. One thing that really got to me was that for the dedication, she dedicated it to Curtis. And she was like, I know you would be very happy right now, because one of the things in the book he tells her is like, you're a great writer. You should write. Like, have you thought of yourself as a writer? And she's like, no, not really. And he's like, yeah, you should write. And he's like, one day, pretty much like, you'll have a book. And this is the first book she wrote. It was also a weird time to read it because, again, February is Valentine's Day. And I don't know, like when I think of February, I think of like my boyfriend and like love and like yippee, hooray. But this was a book that was like, yeah, what if your partner died? These are things that you should think about eventually, but we'd like to avoid. The fourth book I finished in February was The Cover Crisis by Michael Easter. I didn't read this book by myself. I actually read it in a book club. And we split up the book into, I can't remember if it was 4 or 5 sessions, but I read the bulk of it in February. I am guilty of this, but I feel like self-help books have a stigma around them. I've been guilty of thinking those things. I'm like, why am I going to read a self-help book? But I've been trying to move away from that. And I actually feel like it was very interesting to be finishing a self-help book that I think was very helpful to me. I know that self-help is helpful. But it was a book that like I gained a lot from around the time that Doechii won her Grammy, because recently it's come out that she did The Artist's Way. And I don't know that that technically is categorized as a self-help book, but some people do see that as a self-help book for people that are creative and artistic. And just seeing how that book helped her and impacted her and helped propel her into the artist she's now become has been very interesting. And I've seen a lot of people talking about like, I'm going to do the artist way. Like, I'm going to do the artist way. I've even considered doing the artist way, but I just find it interesting because before this, there's been like this idea like self-help books, boo, like I'm not going to read a self-help book. I've been guilty of that as well. But now it's like we see someone successful and we're like, we're going to do that too. And it's like, we could have been doing this whole time. And also, why do we think that it's bad to like read a self-help book? Like, maybe you'll gain something from it. This book is about embracing discomfort. There are a lot of anecdotes in this book that felt a little far-fetched to me, but I think that Michael Easter does a great job of getting his point across that we've just become too comfortable and it's negatively impacting us. He talks about how we spend too much time on our phones, how we spend too much time indoors, like how we are just like not eating the best food for ourselves and how that negatively impacts us. And honestly, talking to you guys about this book and just saying that as like the basis of what he talks in the book feels kind of like disservice to you guys because I feel like I gained so much from the book, but it was mostly because I was in this book club. So every 2 weeks we would read a section of the book. We had reflection questions, and then we would do a challenge that we would complete in the 2 weeks. All of them were centered around either in like adding something to our routine or taking something away. One of the ones that I did was I tried to use my phone less, and those 2 weeks are kind of why I started this YouTube channel, because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm spending so much time on my phone not doing the things I want to do. Maybe I should get off my phone. Another one was centered around like how we ate. And then the last one we did was eating whole food, plant-based meals for 48 hours. And it was just like things that I hadn't thought about doing in the past that were putting me out of my comfort and like making me think about things like eating and how I eat, or like how I move my body and how I make sure I stay active. And it was just really helpful. And there's so much that I gained from this book. Overall, I think I would recommend this book to someone who wants to get uncomfortable, who wants to kind of explore the areas in their life where they've gotten too comfortable. Maybe they want to like be more active. Maybe they want to change their eating routine. Like a lot of the information he shared was backed up by facts and a lot of like information that he researched, which kind of gets me to my next point with self-help books. Like, take what you need, leave what you don't. Personally, I enjoyed reading it, but I will be honest, I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much if I wasn't reading it with the people I read it with. I think the book club that I was in really determined how much I actually gained from this book, because I was actively talking to someone about what I had read. All right, the last 2 books I read in February were actually part of a series by Octavia Butler called Xenogenesis. So these 2 books. And before I get into how great these books are, because I ended up loving them, I just want to say that I'm so mad that I hadn't read anything by Octavia Butler up until now. I know that Parable of the Sower has become really popular recently because of its timeliness, but even before hearing about Parable of the Sower, I had heard about Kindred and I'd heard about this series as well, but I just like never really got into her books. She's such an amazing writer, so I'm like really pissed that I hadn't read anything by her yet. Dawn. It starts off with us being introduced to our main character, Lilith, and she's waking up from being asleep. And when she wakes up, there's an alien right there, and they're like, hey girl, how you doing? Obviously not like that, like this is my rendition of what they said, but they're pretty much like, hey, how's it going? We know that you just woke up and you don't know where you are. That's because Earth, yeah, she died 250 years ago. We saved you and a bunch of other humans because world imploded. There was a war, and it is alluded in the book that the war is between the United States and Russia. What a crazy time to be reading Octavia Butler. They're like, yeah, Earth ended and we saved y'all. For 250 years, we've been studying everything that we need to know about humanity so that we understand your failures as humanity, cure your diseases, and help create a better humanity. So this is what's going to happen. They're like, you're going to help us wake up all of these other people we have on the ship. When they wake up, you are going to procreate so that you create a better race. Pause. The Oankali, which are the aliens in this universe, there is what is considered male, and then there's considered what is female, and then there's a third gender pretty much, but they don't call it gender. They're the Uloi. And they, for purposes of our like societal understanding, they're technically non-binary, but they don't even go by they, them pronouns. Throughout the book, when they refer to them and use a pronoun, they use it. And even Lilith is like, the heck, like, why it? Going back to what the alien is telling Lilith, they're like, you're gonna wake these people up, you're gonna train them, and you guys are gonna have to go back to Earth, blank slate. You guys are gonna create society there but you're going to have to start from scratch. So you're going to have to like train these people to be resilient and train these people to be able to like deal with everything that's on Earth, which includes wilderness. You guys are going to like pretty much, it kind of felt like they were training for Survivor, like living in the middle of nowhere, but like multiply that by 100. And they're like, yeah, so you're going to do that. And by the way, if you don't want to, that's crazy because now you're sterile. We found a way to sterilize everyone. You guys are in these flowers pretty much sleeping, like Venus flytraps, they describe them as, like everyone's sleeping in one of those little pods. And they're like, if you don't want to do this, that sucks because this is like the last chance for humanity. So they throw all of this at Lilith. And this entire book, like, Lilith has this dilemma where she's like, am I going to help the Oankali in their mission, or am I going to like not help them and like stick with humans? But like also like our only hope as humanity is like to do what the Oankali want us to do. Like it's an entire dilemma. I don't know how Lilith didn't just like cry the entire first quarter of the book, because I mean, she cries in several portions, but like, why didn't she just give up? She could have just been like, actually, no, guys, that's a lot to process. It baffles me how she's able to like make it through this entire book. Because me, personally, I would have been like, psych, guys, you got the right idea, wrong bitch. Like, I'm not helping y'all. So well written. This entire first book is like pretty much developing Lilith as a character, but also building this world for us. One thing that I really enjoyed about Octavia Butler's writing is she's able to describe everything to a T. I think in sci-fi, when you're building your world around aliens and this extraterrestrial like world, extraterrestrial beings, sometimes it's hard for authors to really give you an image in your head of what they're trying to tell you. We don't have that problem with Octavia Butler. It's down. Throughout the entire book, there were parts where I was like, are the Oankali the good guys or the bad guys? Like, am I supposed to be rooting for them? Because there's a lot of conversation of like eugenics, of like, we're gonna work together to make a better baby. And like, if a baby can't do this, like, bad. Having cancer, bad. Having disabilities, bad. We can fix it. So it felt very like, and there was just other things about the Oankali that I was like, oh, they're not the saviors we think they are. But then there's also parts of the book where like humans are like doing crazy human shit, and I'm like, oh, but like humans are also flawed. So like that's the dilemma that I think Lilith has. She's like, well, do I want what's best for humanity? But like if I do want that, does that mean we should like procreate and go back to Earth? Like, it's just crazy. At the end of the book, we're supposed to see Lilith and the people she woke up go back to Earth. Spoiler alert, she does not go back to Earth because they're like, actually, we're going to keep you here and you're going to help us keep training people. Oh, and by the way, you're a mom now, you're pregnant. And she's like, what? I didn't even want to be pregnant, which again brings us back to this idea of consent and how like the Oankali are like not asking these people for consent. They're like, you're going to procreate because we said so. Which brings us to the next book, Adulthood Rites. So by the time we meet Lilith in this book, that time jump, she's already had 6 kids, and Akin is the 6th one. Because there's been this time jump, we find out that there is humans, there is the Oankali / the Uloi, which are the entities from the Oankalis that procreate with humans, and then there are the human constructs, which are half human, half Oankali. The people that make it to Earth, some of them run away. They're like, we're not gonna stay with the Oankali. Screw y'all. We're the resistors. They can't procreate because they're still sterile. And the Oankali have found a way to sterilize the resistors, pretty much. Like, okay, you run away, you're not gonna be able to procreate because you need an Uloi to procreate. Which brings us to Akin. Akin is just born, but because he's half Oankali, he's half human, he's able to talk by the time he's like 2 years old. And everyone's like, yo, what the hell? Like, this little kid can talk. While this book was about like world building and kind of spoon feeding us what the Oankali want from the humans, this book is about the Oankali being the bad guys. For the first, I want to say third of the book, Akin is not with Lilith, his mother, because he's kidnapped by resistors. And the resistors take them with him. And remember how I told y'all that the Oankali have been able to cure these diseases? One of the first things that Akin finds out is that one of his kidnappers has an ulcer, and he's like, why don't you cure it? Like, why are humans so attached to like their illness? Like, why don't you cure it? You don't want the Oankali to help you. You don't want to be better. and he has to grapple with the ideas of humanity. So he's half human, he's half Owen Collie. But this first third of the book, he has to kind of live with humans that are resistors. They don't care for the Owen Collie. They don't want to procreate for them. They just want to be able to be left alone, pretty much. And through the exploration of that, we see like humans doing crazy stuff. Because Akin is half alien, half human, he has these tentacles, and one of the humans that he encounters is like, we should cut them off. And he's like, well, no, why? Because like I need these to see. And they're like, yeah, but you look crazy. So like things like that make you think like, oh yeah, humans, we're kind of ass. And then the second third of the book, they find Akin and they're like, hey, Akin, like you're with us now. The Owen Collie find him and his mom finds him. And he has to go back to the ship that Lilith was on and learn from the Owen Collie. And there he learns that the Owen Collie are like, we have everything we need from humans. We don't need them anymore. We're going to dip and we're going to take all the resources we need from Earth. Even though we brought the humans back, we're going to take all the resources we need and dip. And to avoid humans creating the same dilemma and problem they did when Lilith was on Earth originally, more than like 300 years now, we're not going to let them procreate. We're just going to dip and take everything we need. Akin is like, oh crap, like I actually built a lot of like bonds with these humans back on planet Earth. So I don't think I vibe with that actually. So he comes back to Earth and he's like, I need to go tell the resistors that, hey, actually the Owen Collie, they're going to dip. We're going to go to Mars. We leave off at the end of this book with Akin trying to gather his people and be like, we're going to take a ship and go to Mars to continue living. That is just a quick like summary in my head that I'm able to regurgitate to y'all. These two books are just so good. 5 out of 5 stars right off the bat. Let me tell you that right now. I am not doing these books justice. They are chef's kiss. How Octavia Butler was able to come up with this whole world and explain it to me in such a way that I'm like excited to read the next book is crazy to me. She did it 110%. Love her. May she rest in power, queen. It is just so good. Everyone should read these two books. And yeah, those are all the books that I read in February. And this is my first recap. I am so glad I read all these books. They were so good. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. If you've read any of these books and agree with my feelings on them, let me know in the comments. And if you don't agree, let me know in the comments too. I really enjoyed these books, but maybe you didn't. And I want to know why you didn't enjoy them. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see y'all in the next video.